Hello and welcome to Homebrew. Today we're looking at the campaign Call of the Hunger and preparing for it as a DM. So if you're looking to watch the Call of the Hunger campaign, which will be starting on Monday, June 13th, I advise that you don't watch this video specifically because there'll be a lot of spoilers involved for the campaign. But if you're looking to get into the seat of being a DM for really any sort of role-playing game, I strongly recommend that you watch this because I myself am pretty much a new DM, and this gives you a background on just what all goes into it to run a moderately successful game. So stay tuned and let's get started. So a couple of things here just to note is that we're set in the world of Dwelling, which is my own creation. So I have a lot of background stuff that I had to do just to get my world up and running. I have about 55-ish Word document pages of notes involved in setting this world up, and I haven't even fully rendered in certain areas. What I do is I wait for a specific story to come up that takes place in a particular area of the world, and I build my story or flush out the world setting as I go, so that way I don't have to eat the whole thing at one time. So if you're already set in a different world that's already been created, a lot of that work's been done for you. And if you are a DM trying to do your own thing, you don't want to worry about canonical, this, that, or the other, don't worry about it, all right? For the most part, you can take these steps and follow what I've been doing. So, what do we do in order to start this off? First of all, I asked my players. So you can watch our session 0 for the Call of the Hunger campaign, and you'll see what sort of materials that we're going into this with. I asked my players, and we kind of all agreed that they wanted a woods-themed campaign. And in our world, we have this area called the Woodlands, which is pretty much its own country in its size, which worked out perfectly, okay? The woodlands in this area are actually broken down into 3 components, and I decided to start flushing this out, like I said, once my players told me where they wanted to be. The woodlands, the trees are so massive that they actually break the area into 3 different tiers: the canopy, the thicketlands, and the feeding grounds. The feeding grounds is the normal level of the earth. It's where the rivers are, it's where the mud and the dirt is. It's also an area that is perpetually either pitch black or dimly lit. So it has its own feel to it. And the trees are so massive that you go into an area called the thicketlands, which is up off of the ground a ways, but it's an area where other vegetation has grown off of the branches of the trees. So there's a whole micro ecosystem on the thicketlands where creatures can walk along, jumping from branch to branch, so to speak, and almost just kind of like a spider on a web, living a life there. And then I developed what's called the canopy, which is a little bit higher up. So lots of sunlight comes in, and basically, so there's this whole stratosphere about what's going on within the woodlands. So my characters wanted to play a campaign set in a woodsy area, so I started to flush this out. Well, what I do first when players decide that they want to play a campaign with me, I almost spilt my drink, is that we have to talk about what kind of campaign interests they have. One of my characters was potentially interested in playing a social character. So I needed to think of what kind of social conflicts could I have in the woodlands. Well, there's these people out there called the Woodland, which your Woodland are a sentient race essentially of wood elves that started to take on animalistic characteristics. So you have some that look like minotaurs, some that look like satyrs, some that look like kunari, some that look like tengu, bird people, things like that. So they evolved over time, but most of them are protectors of the creatures and the ecosystem, and they live there. So I started to think about what we could do with these cultures and whatnot in the system, because I had a character who wanted to have a social aspect, and it would be really sucky if they went into this woodland area and they didn't get to use half of their kit or something along those lines, right? So that's kind of one of the points where I started. One thing to note, I don't really start to take character backstory in until after I've started to develop the campaign. Otherwise, it gets a bit muddied. So what I do is I decided to make a main campaign theme. Basically, you're trying to create conflict in an area or some sort of tension or something that the characters are going to need to solve. And then you build in your reasons for why those characters would be working on that, okay? And that just really helps make sure that you don't get bogged down and get paralysis by analysis. So I decided, hey, you know what? I'm going to have these factions kind of fighting over each other, and the characters are going to have to solve why this is happening, right? So a couple of reasons why this could be happening, and what I decided to go down is that there's a god in this area, a local god by the name of Cinder. He's basically a big bear, and he is responsible for why all of the villagers in the local areas, they make sacrifices to Cinder in order to keep the wolves from invading and eating their sheep and stuff like that. This is a really dark, bleak world. And so he, Cinder, is in charge of what's called the hunger, which is a feeling that certain animals get to become more territorial or to become more predatory. So I figured maybe Cinder's whipping up a storm of the hunger, and that's what these characters need to solve, is get that to stop. Now, why would he be doing this? And what kind of reasonable objectives can the characters solve? Well, they're not going to fight a god, and especially not for characters of their level, unless we make this really long campaign, okay? But what if something's pissing the god off, and he's trying to get rid of it? Well, he's a big badass, for lack of a better terms. So what does he have a hard time fighting? So a bunch of small things. Well, that's a good example. Maybe there's something that he just can't get rid of on his own because it's not just some other big beast that he can swack, right? So a couple thoughts that came to mind. I like the idea of maybe he's sick and he's contaminated with something, and the characters need to be able to solve that and cure him. Well, one of my characters wanted to be a healer, so it gives him some reason to want to invest into inherently going along with the campaign, which gets us back into why do our characters want to engage in this. So I thought, I got some social stuff. I've got a world that they can investigate. It's not quite easily to figure out what's going on there. We have another character who wanted to play a Woodland, so we put them, as you guys are probably familiar with, and we put them in the Gnarlwood. This Emery, the character who is the main focus point of the Taking Root campaign. The reason why we put them in the Gnarlwood is otherwise they would have so much information already at their fingertips about the Woodlands that they wouldn't have anything to learn there, and it would be really hard for them to play this without me just spilling the beans to the main character, to that character before the campaign even started, right? So I wanted them to have a chance to have some sort of way of being able to figure things out locally without just having been given it right at the beginning. So our three characters, let's just go into some of the backstory information that we developed in order to bring them into this. So I didn't originally do this until, what was it? The last campaign that I played was the first time that I started incorporating backstories. Otherwise, it was, why are you here in this tavern with these other people? All right, let's go. And just assume that my players would want to grab in and start their story. We made one-pagers for my last playthrough, or my last campaign, and it worked out wonderfully. I was able to just lace in a couple little hints, create side quests, and to create some tension between the characters, right? I don't know everything about you, and you don't know everything about me is fun for the players. And so I decided to do that this time as well. Emery's campaign, or Emery's backstory, was a whole campaign, right? Well, a mini campaign. So I don't have that all written down, but we do have it for posterity's sakes, and our character is very familiar with it, or our player is very familiar with it. Now, if I were to go over here real quick, and I'll zoom in for you. Oh, that's just fun. Let's see here. What do we got? We'll zoom you in here. Well, you can't see the side of the screen here, but I just made a quick, this is a 10-page note document, and I've got backgrounds as one of my tabs here. I can click on it. I've got Wallaby. So Wallaby is someone that we'll talk about here in a moment. We've got Emery. We've got Ilya. And we've got Wretch, Brave, and Tail. So Emery, you'll see she's got some background notes. This is just quick reference stuff from me so I can get her into the game and think of core components of how her past story is related to and laced into the game. So let's take a look at Ilya's. So we talked about, I just basically asked my buddy who's playing Ilya, his name is Dustin, what do you want from your character? He said, I want to be kind of like a mercenary who stands for good, hates to see oppression in the world, and he's just a really good melee fighter, and he's from the north. And so we made up this backstory where his dad, his character wanted to have a heroic feat, which is like a legendary weapon, like Thor's hammer, except this is a sword. So we had his dad make this special sword. Nothing else was very good about what he could create, but his dad fell into debt and got taken away, and this is the only thing that he was able to inherit. Great. So what I did is I started to think about who could have helped him make this. Well, if he's up north, then he could have been around dwarves or onyx or Jotun, who would have been able to be very aware of smithing and would have been able to help him. We have another character who's got a backstory associated with the onyx, and the onyx are associated with an area near the Woodlands. So we started to put in a little bit of that. So we say his dad was actually taken by the onyx, who helped him figure out what he was, how to smith. But then, because of uncollected debts, they took the father away for slavery or something like that. Then Dustin's character Ilya basically went on a soul-searching quest, and then he got hired by someone to go do something in the Woodlands. Okay, now there's specifics in here that I wrote down, but essentially Ilya is being paid 100 gold, which is a massive amount of money, to go into the Woodlands and find a ship. Okay, now one thing that we know about the Woodlands, if we scroll back here, so there is a river called the White Flow that goes from Drystan's Rest through the Woodlands and past Lemoore. So we basically just said, hey, there's a ship that was going from Drystan's Rest toward Lemoore. It never made it to Lemoore. That's what your character knows. He doesn't know anything about the Woodlands. He just has to find this ship. We give him that information, and suddenly he's got a reason to go into the Woodlands and then run into this stuff that's going on in the campaign. Okay, so now we've got a reason for Dustin's character to go into the Woodlands. Perfect. Second thing that we need is a reason for Emery's character to go to the Woodlands. If you guys listened to the Taking Root campaign, her brother's soul needs to be stabilized in some way, shape, or form because she's afraid of losing him, and she wants to be able to make some sort of simulacrum for him so that she can keep him nearby and use her constructs as a way for him to be able to live in this world. We said that there's one way to do that, and in order to do that, you need to find a super special guy who knows how to make these simulacrums, make these, what's the word for it? Space on it. These soul vessels, basically, and they live in the Bracken Bastion, which is a place in Carnation in the Woodlands. So go there, and you'll be able to solve this stuff for your brother. So now we've got a reason for Emery to go into the Woodlands. We still got one third character that we need a reason to get into the Woodlands, and that is Wretch Braventail. So why would this guy go in here? Well, we already know that, if Cinder is sick, and for your guys' information, Wretch Braventail is led by a god. We could have the god just be like, go to the Woodlands, there's something sick there that I need to cure. And their god hates the sight of taint, corruption, and injuries and stuff like that. Basically, the god of beauty and healing. And they think that things that need healing are disgusting, so they heal it to make it beautiful again. So we could just have that god say, go there. But that's a bit too on the nose for me. I would like my world to feel a little bit less high magic-esque. So what we decided is, hey, maybe he feels obligated to go with the other party members to get down into there. Because we know that once he gets in there and realizes what's going on, he's going to want to stay. And that's the other thing, is why do these other characters want to stay? We'll have to figure that out too, right? So the next thing is that all of these characters obviously can't just meet roaming this gigantic forest. We have to have them meet somewhere else, somewhere populous. Well, Lemoore is a city right next to the Woodlands. So I figured, it's a big, big city. There's obvious reasons for people to show up here. Lemoore is also a disgusting city. It's like super industrial, but they also do like weird experiments with biology where they make like mecha humans or cyborgs, but like diesel cyborgs, not like the clean looking ones. So you think like rusty iron hands and weird crab leg things and stuff like that. They've been doing lots of experiments like that. So because of the smog and stuff like that. Hey, we got this guy who hates pollution and all things disgusting and taint. It's a perfect reason for him to go there. He can go on a crusade to Lemoore. Except he's not going to do that very well, right? He's one guy. We have a perfect reason for him to go to the Woodlands, and that is he's going to get ran out of Lemoore because there's no reason why he'd be staying very soon, okay? So now we got a character who has a good reason to be in Lemoore and a good reason to get out of there. We can also, since this is right at the start, we have agency, give other reasons why he would be dependent on these other characters. So what I just did is said, hey, I'm just going to strip you all of your money. You spent it all in town. You're looking for a way to get out. You haven't been able to find a way to get out. Now we have a reason why this character could get hooked and indebted to these other people right out the gates, okay? So why is Ilya, or Dustin's character, in Lemoore? Well, if he was coming, if he's looking for the ship that went into the Woodlands, and the only reason why a ship would be passing through the Woodlands would be to get to the other side, because there's no trade in the Woodlands. It's just a black spot on the map. Everyone goes around it typically, but there's these special ships that go through. Well, he's going to look for that ship on the other side. So that's his plot hook and why he should be in Lemoore, right? So he goes to Lemoore and says, hey, did this ship make it? Because I'm tracking these guys down, and there's no reason why they would be in the Woodlands that he's aware of. Well, now he's got a reason. If that ship didn't make it, now has a reason to go to the Woodlands, okay? So we got a reason for all three characters to go into the Woodlands. How do we rope them all together? What's the single focus point? And this is usually where I bring in my DM PC, right? My DM player character. And they're just someone to help, like, loosely give some rails and some plausible agency to the DM to nudge the story, okay? And what I decided is, hey, we should have an informant, someone who people go to in town to get information, right? So he's going to be the one that Ilya asked about the ships to, or where to find that information. He's going to be the one that Emery and Archek check in with to see what's going on with the Bracken Bastion. We made him a Suelun, which basically means someone from the Bracken Bastion. They're a race of people, basically witchers, who live in this community that's set in the woods. So now we've got a reason why Wallaby, which is the name of this informant, would know of the characters that these people are talking about. And then from there, we can take that character and we can lace them into the story a little bit and help put guardrails on this, right? So, hey, all three of our characters have a reason, or all three of our player characters have a reason to know Wallaby. So they have a universal point where they can meet. What we're going to do is have Wallaby be someone that takes on the main quest. And the way we're going to do this is we take the character from Emery's backstory. He's going to have some information that is important to some other stories going on. And he's going to leak it to Wallaby. He's going to say, hey, I work for this character named Leanne Shea, and she wants me to find this guy in Bronton, but I failed. Well, the guy in Bronton was a secret ferreted away by the guy that Wallaby works for. So now we have a reason for Wallaby to go, oh crap, that was private information. Next thing we do, Wallaby wants to find more of a particular resource that a dangerous faction has, known as the Onyx. Okay, so now we take Archek. We say he's going to run over, and while he's in Lemoore, which has some of these Onyx characters, he's going to run over and get killed by those guys. And those guys are very dangerous. They also didn't want this information to get out about where the location of this spy or this resource that's being smuggled out is going. So Wallaby's like, crap, I sent him off by accident. He's dead. Now they're going to come for me. I got to get out of town. And I got to get this information that to my boss, who lives in the Bracken Bastion, which is where Emery wants to go. So now he's going to say, hey, I knew some other people who need to go through the Woodlands, which are very, very dangerous. I'm going to rope them all together and say, let's go together. Okay, so now what we say is Wallaby goes, hey, Emery, I'll take you where you need to be if you take me where I need to be. Hey, Ilya, I'll take you where you're looking to go, but you got to take me where I need to go. And he says, hey, Wretch Braventail, I'll get you out of town, but you got to help me get where I need to go. And all of you need to play ball with your other campaigns too, right? So now he gives them a reason to unite and send them off. And then he can do is he can leak the information that's already started to get leaked to Emery through Archek. He can start saying, hey, here's some leaky information, and he's going to be a bit shady. They're going to say, what's going on with this guy? They're going to walk into the Woodlands. People are going to be violent. He's going to be like, this isn't normal. And so they're going to start asking, what's he doing, right? And so he's the link to the main campaign. They all have reasons to be in the Woodlands, and they have reasons potentially to start staying. But that's up to the players to help foster. So now we've got ourselves a sort of campaign started out. So what we started to do is make some notes on Wallaby's plot. So what do I have for Wallaby here? Wallaby was surprised when Archek came to him asking about the Onyx. Archek was trying to buy a special gem from the Onyx, which there's only one, and it was supposed to be a secret. So Wallaby knew the Onyx were working on a golem that could run off the souls of trapped people, which is stuff that was coming loosely from the story that Archek had told Emery in her backstory, okay? Anyways, Wallaby was the one who told his own boss, Jackal, about it. When Archek asked Wallaby if Wallaby could contact the Onyx about these soul vessels, Wallaby goes, he's reeling like, how did you know about this stuff, right? And he goes, well, did you hear about it from the Bronze, which is the local Onyx gang? And so he's going to get a bit confusing, and then he's getting a bit confused. Archek leaves to go find the Bronze guys to start basically spitting out his mouth and saying things he shouldn't, asking these guys for resources. Archek leaves to go find the Bronze, like I said. Wallaby snaps to, goes to find Archek. Archek dies. Wallaby now knows he needs to go and get the heck out of town. He ropes everyone together. He goes to find his boss, Jackal. Jackal then tells him, you need to find Leanne and Shay, Archek's original boss, and ask where she got the information. So now we've got this character running around, basically not sure about Archek's information, so they're going to be kind of asking Emery about it, and that's going to be suspicious. And we've got them following this character all throughout the Woodlands. And so now we've got what they're up to, right? We've got what our players are up to. We've got a little bit on Emery, and I was originally worried about Archek. Like, what would she do if Archek was gone, right? Because Archek has been helping stabilize her. So we give her a side quest. Hey, someone in Lemoore will help stabilize your brother indefinitely if you go do him a fetch quest in the Woodlands. So we give her a fetch quest for that. It's on a timetable so they don't dilly-dally, because that's what someone would do if they said, here, I'll give you this if you promise to bring something back for me. They would put a timer on it, right? So she's going to curse him. The person's going to curse Emery specifically and say, if you don't come back, this curse is going to bazing and you're going to be in a world of hurt. So now we've got a primary quest, a quest that the characters are going to start off with because they all agree Emery being taken out is going to be a problem. We've got characters, both Ilya and Wretch won't like the people in Lemoore because they're a bit dictatorial. We've got Ilya and Emery not liking the Onyx for specific reasons in their backstory, and they can learn more on the Onyx and what they're up to and shenanigans, and we can build those into side quests. And we've got those characters coming down into the Woodlands. So how do we get the rest of the characters to really think that solving what's going on with Cinder is important? Here's what we do. We make some sort of immediacy to it. We mentioned that the Cinder, if he's sick or something like that, and he's whipping everyone into a fever of the hunger, why wouldn't this affect the players, right? Well, if we have it start affecting the players, it means that we put all of their quests on a timetable. It means solve what's going on with Cinder. Otherwise, your character will go crazy, right? So now we've got a reason for them to do it. If they don't solve the main quest, they can't solve their side quests. And how do we should make a mechanic for that, right? That'll be fun. So we make a mechanic for that. And so what we did is, if you look at my campaign notes here, I've got one called the Hunger. What I made is a table. In Genesis, you have character traits, and you use those for your role playing. And what I basically did is, every long rest while in the woods, you're going to have to do a discipline check. And if you start failing them, you start getting these nasty traits. So competitive. We have tiers of traits. So a faint nuisance, a concerning trait, a threatening trait, a violent trait, and just lost. Okay. So every long rest, you're going to have to do a check. If you fail your check, you get a trait. If you fail again, you upgrade that check to one in the next bracket. If you fail again, it goes to one in the next bracket. And as the bear Cinder gets more and more diseased, this check is going to get harder and harder. We start super simple. And what I decided is, hey, in order for the characters to start kind of like thinking this is maybe something that's one off and then gets worse, I figured what I could do is I could call for the checks and then in the chats tell the players secretively or as a whisper what traits they get. Okay, and some of these, so like there's 4 different faint nuisance ones. I'll just roll a d4 and see what they get. So we've got some fun little ways of making the characters slowly get crazy. You can see lost. You are forever a feral animal, a beast man. Yeah, so they could have a TPK if they sit in the woodlands too long and not solve the main campaign. So how do we combat this, or how do the players combat this? Well, we make another mechanic that makes sense for how they treat this. We say if they do a long rest outside of the forest, so they go back to Lemoore for some weird objective, which we already have a reason for the characters to go into the woods and then back out to Lemoore, Emery's starting kind of fetch quest, then we'll see that they actually clear all of those traits by sleeping outside of the woods. And remember that this isn't something that they can just go back in and out of the forest in a day. This forest is days across. Okay, so if we look at this map here, I've got a little legend here. It is 1 day by foot to go each square. So to cross this forest, it would be like 10 to 12 days. But that measurement is on roads. This is all hindering terrain. So this is like a 22-day to get across the forest sort of map. And that's if it wasn't dangerous, right? So there's a lot of other things that would be completely impassable in here too. Okay, what else do we have? Well, some other things that we needed to do is create a fleshed out map of the woodlands. So it's not good enough for you to just have like the generic whole continent that all this stuff is taking place. So we made out a little bit more. We've got different areas: Eye of Azralam, the Dancing Springs, the Bracken Bastion. We've got a little line denoting that this is all within here, and then we can update this as the players continue, and we say, hey, you ran into this little hut with this dude in it. We can just write it on here. And so the guys can get more and more details on this, but you don't want to fill it out too much. Otherwise, they get information that they didn't really earn right out the gates. So we got a smaller map here. And then what I did is I filled out the local turf war, right? So if everyone's fighting, what factions are in play? Well, there's 4 different factions of Woodland. It's not just all the Woodland. They divvy out their jobs, okay? We've got the ones on the north side, the ones on the south side, and then we've got the ones who are in charge of the feeding grounds, and then the ones who are in charge of the kind of like the forest periphery. So it's, if I show you the map again real quick, the inner forest is considered the big forest, whereas the rest of like the perimeter of the forest is considered the outer forest, and that is very similar to like a normal forest. So for folks to, if people are settling in villages and cities around the perimeter of the woodlands, they would have a lot of interaction with the immediate forest. They would need to go in there for supplies like wood and, hunting and stuff like that. Well, those elves that deal with those guys are going to have a much different, in my case, Woodland, they're going to have a much different temperament and nature than the ones who live in the deep forest, which you got like mile-high trees, right? So the different factions that we have, we built into our world, and then we just kind of made a summary of what they're doing here, right? So the Flayun ones are the ones that are running the south. The Flayun ones are the ones running the feeding grounds, which is a little bit more war-torn. They're going to be a little bit more savage. Then we've got the south Woodland, known as the Sillin. And then we've got the north ones, known as the Deerman tribe. And then we've got, what's the other one? Sorry, the north ones are known as the Vivian tribe. The Deerman ones are the ones that are originally inhabiting the Fringewood. So we got 4 different factions. That's all you really need to know. And then we start talking about, which tribe, this tribe pissed off this tribe in turn pissed off this tribe, and so on and so forth. It just makes some sort of cultural thing going on. We've also got the Carnation nearby. And so you'll see, let's see here, I got some notes on that over on this page here. You don't need to get into too many details here, but basically, if we go back to this map, you see this brown spot? That is all Timbermen, which are like your Ent people. And the Aes Waylun are the Witchers who are helping them out. Well, they have a problem, the Timbermen, on reproducing. So they're trying to do experiments with the help of the Witchers to help fluster up their numbers. Well, they're in the south, right? So that means that they fall to the Sillin tribe to have relationships with. They're also invading. They weren't originally here. They're basically taking over some space using the Tekeknu, which are the bug people who are in charge of like rot and recycling and stuff like that. So if they are pushing in from the mountain range, that's what Paratisium is. It's a hole in the ground that goes to where the insect people are originally from. If they're invading from the peripheries, that means it's also the territory of the Deerman tribe, or the tribe responsible for the Fringewood. So now we've got, hey, these guys are taking away property from us, says the South tribe. Then the border tribe says, no, this is your responsibility. It's in the south. So now you got these guys fighting. You've got these Ents who are trying to save their kind, but trying to get involved with these guys. So now they're at a point of contention. You've got the Flayun tribe, which is the tribe responsible for the feeding grounds. So they're saying, well, we need some of these guys to help control the foliage down here, everything that's settled off of the trees. So they get all up involved, and all of this is sparked because while they would normally figure out how to get along, the hunger is kicking in, and it's making all of them territorial. So we got all that going on. The Flayun tribe, which is responsible for the feeding grounds, is worried that the Deerman tribe, the Borderlands tribe, is going to enlist help from Dryston's Rest, Lamore, so they start sinking boats as they come in, and not allowing them through, which is causing contentions between outsiders and the Deerman tribe. You got all this stuff going on. And I figured, there's a lot going on in the south. Let's make the fetch job for Emery's character in the north. There's a spot called the Arboretum. It's just a spot that I made because it seemed like a fun idea. And what it is it's basically a preserve for the Timbermen. They've got plants and trees planted of all of the rarest species. And so they've planted, or they have some of the Timbermen living in there as almost like an endangered species place. So someone from Lamore is going to say, hey, I need this rare stuff from the Arboretum. Go get it for me. Well, they're going to run in and take that, and then that's going to spark more contest in this area, right? The Deerman tribe's going to get fingers pointed at them. There's going to be a Aes Waylun helping them, Wallaby, which means that more fingers are going to be pointed towards the Bracken Bastion, and all hell's going to break loose at that too. So now we've got a lot of things to interact with from the party. And remember that the players are responsible to make sure that they get engaged with the story that's going on. You don't need to force everything. You don't need to make sure that there's no way possible that they could not engage with this stuff. We've got reasons for them to be there, and we've got reasons for side quests in the area. So really, that's all we really need to go over as far as our campaign so far. Some other items, I made a quick notes on, what's going on with Leanne and Shay. What's she curious about? So she's going to be actually not responsible for the infection of Cinder, but she is going to be the solution. The Cinder character, the god who's infected, Leanne and Shay is going to be working for like a mad scientist god who might know how to cure him once the players reach out to him. So now we've got that tying full circle into the main campaign. Wallaby has a way, if you follow Wallaby's quest, to finding a logical solution to the main campaign's problems, and then you can get back to doing your side quests. Boom. So we got that. We got the hunger as a fun mechanic. We've got the turf war as a fun mechanic. We've got character backgrounds and why they want to be in that area. I included a little bit more on Wretch Braventail. His character came from some sickness stuff going on, but I also said, hey, you know what? You found this girl a long time ago and you fell in love. Well, she ended up getting sick. Sorry, let me back up. He was part of a wandering band of rats that were basically act like nomads, gypsies. Well, he bumped into another group. That's when his group got sick, and that's when his power started to manifest with his deity. Well, his little squeeze that he bumped into is going to have found a way for her people to be saved in the heart of the Woodlands by like a font of healing, so to speak. So he's going to run into her, and she's going to have kids and say, hey, I got all your kids. So we're going to have some fun backstory stuff like that. And that's just all built into this. One thing I did is I built out their backstory, and then I went through and I highlighted the stuff that they should not see. And then I went back and I cut all that out. I copied it, the whole thing. I cut out the highlighted stuff, and then I sent them what was left. And so you'll see here, like, this was what I sent to Dustin. And then this is all my backstory campaign stuff. So I pulled some stuff out just so that way I would have some things to tie him in the future. But he doesn't need to know what my plans are. He just needs to know certain things, right? For being able to play his character accurately. We got some notes on kind of the how Wallaby is gonna be personified, accents, stuff like that. And then the rest of it, like I mentioned before, is it's all here. So I've also got these stages here: stage 1, stage 2, stage 3. What I just kind of envision what's the campaign going to look like. Well, we got some arcs. They got to leave Lemoore. They got to get into the Fringewood. They got to go from the Fringewood into the main Woodlands, which is the feeding grounds, the canopy, and the thicketlands, and go through some stuff there. And I started to make some fun little campaign, little encounters that I thought would be fun, some characters and whatnot, and started making little paragraph notes in here. But that's all really semantics. From here, we have everything that we need for our campaign. For the first session. Now, what we're going to do is make out the first session, which isn't really part of today's video. So tune in next time. We'll be starting to do prep for session 1 is our next video, and we'll get that out here to you before our session 1 of the campaign. And what you'll see from there moving forward is a video after each episode of the Call of the Hunger, detailing what we needed to do to prepare for the next session, and what we learned and scrambled for our old session. All right, well, I hope you enjoyed this look behind the scenes on the Call of the Hunger, and I look forward to seeing you on the campaign stream. And if you have any questions or concerns, feel free to add them into the comments, and I'll get back to you. Thank you, and have a good day.